Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to this in-depth update on the escalating conflict in the Middle East, focusing on the dramatic shifts in power dynamics between Iran, the United States, and Israel. Over the past week, we've witnessed events that have fundamentally altered the global landscape, challenging long-held assumptions about Western dominance in the region. If you're seeking straightforward analysis without the spin of mainstream outlets, you're in the right place. Before we delve into the details, if you appreciate reports like this that cut through the noise, please like this video, share it with others, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep delivering these insights. Let's start by setting the stage with some historical context. Ever since oil was discovered in the Middle East, Western powers have sought to control the region's resources and politics. Initially, it was the British Empire pulling the strings, but after World War II, the United States stepped in as the global hegemon. For decades, the US has invested trillions of dollars building a vast network of military bases, surveillance systems, intelligence operations, and alliances across the Middle East. This presence was designed to secure oil flows, protect Israel, and counter any challenges to American influence. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait became key partners, hosting US troops and benefiting from American security guarantees. However, this elaborate structure, built over generations, has been dramatically undermined in just the past week by Iran's determined response to the US-Israeli aggression. What began on February 28 as a joint US-Israeli operation, codenamed Epic Fury by the Americans and Roaring Lion by the Israelis, targeted Iran's leadership and military infrastructure. The strikes killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and several high-ranking officials, aiming to decapitate the regime and halt Iran's nuclear program. President Donald Trump defended the action, claiming it was necessary to neutralize threats and suggesting the conflict might last 4 to 6 weeks, without a ground invasion. But Iran's retaliation has been swift and far-reaching, exposing vulnerabilities in the US network that few anticipated. In a stunning turn, Iran has targeted US military assets across the Gulf, striking bases in Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, and Jordan. Reports confirm damage to key facilities, including the headquarters of the US Navy's Fifth Fleet in Manama, Bahrain, where structures housing communication and radar systems were hit. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest US military installation in the Middle East, suffered a ballistic missile strike. Similar attacks damaged satellite communications at Ali Al Salem in Kuwait and other sites. Iranian drones and missiles have overwhelmed defenses, with videos showing explosions and fires at these locations. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claims to have fired hundreds of drones and missiles, targeting not just military sites, but also energy infrastructure and US embassies in places like Dubai. This barrage has depleted US and allied munitions at an alarming rate. Pentagon officials admit that interceptor stocks for systems like Patriot and THAAD are running low after just days of intense exchanges. One Gulf ally reportedly has only enough for another week at this pace. The US is scrambling to redirect supplies from other regions, including Asia and Europe, to bolster Israel and its bases. Dubai's ammunition and food reserves are said to last only 10 days under siege conditions, and global allies like Japan are facing oil shortages, forcing them to consider selling US assets to secure supplies. This has led to widespread frustration among US partners, who feel exposed and question Washington's ability to protect them. Gulf leaders have privately complained about not being notified in advance of the initial strikes, and some are openly criticizing the US for dragging them into a conflict they warned against. The sentiment is growing that US bases, once seen as shields, now attract danger, eroding faith in American guarantees. On the battlefield, Iran has escalated its assaults on Israel, deploying hypersonic missiles like the Fateh-2 and cluster munitions that have penetrated Israel's Iron Dome. Explosions have rocked Tel Aviv, with reports of impacts on the Defense Ministry headquarters and Ben Gurion Airport. Iranian state media boasts of overwhelming Israeli defenses, turning parts of the city into sitting ducks as ammunition runs short. Trump has signaled a big wave of US action is coming, but with air superiority established over western Iran, the focus is shifting to underground missile sites and naval assets. Yet, Iran's navy threatens the Strait of Hormuz, a vital choke point for global oil, which is now partially closed, spiking prices to over $90 a barrel and disrupting shipping worldwide. What makes this moment world-changing is how Iran, long perceived as cooperative and restrained, has transformed into a formidable force after the assassination of its leader. For years, Tehran endured sanctions and provocations, but this spark ignited a fury that has dismantled decades of U.S. investments in the region. The world did not expect Iran to strike back so effectively, wiping out radar systems, command centers, and forcing the U.S. to rethink its entire Middle East posture. Mainstream media in the West has downplayed these losses, focusing instead on Iranian casualties, which number in the thousands, including over 1,000 civilians according to human rights groups. But the strategic setback for the U.S. is undeniable. Its presence is being driven out, and allies are losing confidence. Behind Iran's resilience is subtle, but crucial support from China and Russia. Following the 12-day war in June 2025, Iran quickly deepened ties with Beijing, switching to China's Beidou satellite system last month for navigation and targeting. Reports indicate 16 large Chinese transport planes landed in Tehran 2 months ago, likely delivering supplies. 3 Chinese warships, including an electronic monitoring vessel, are now in the war zone, and experts believe Chinese technicians are assisting in Tehran. Russia is providing intelligence on U.S. positions, helping Iran coordinate strikes. Both powers have condemned the U.S.-Israeli attacks as violations of international law, with Moscow calling them armed aggression and Beijing urging an immediate ceasefire. Gulf leaders have appealed to China for mediation, and Beijing has agreed to send a delegate soon, positioning itself as a peacemaker while the U.S. appears reckless. Looking back over the past week, Trump's expectation that Iran would surrender after losing its leader has backfired spectacularly. Instead of capitulation, Tehran has retaliated with precision, exposing U.S. vulnerabilities and shifting the power balance. The conflict has spilled over into Lebanon, with Israeli strikes on Hezbollah targets met by counterattacks. Globally, markets are in turmoil, air travel is disrupted, and fears of a broader war loom, potentially involving proxies like the Houthis or drawing in European forces after Iranian strikes on Cyprus. The human toll is mounting, 6 U.S. service members dead, dozens wounded, Israeli civilians killed in missile barrages, and Iranian forces suffering heavy losses but holding firm. This war marks the end of an era. The U.S. can no longer assume unchallenged dominance in the Middle East. Iran now controls key lifelines, dictating terms to weaken neighbors. Allies worldwide are reassessing their reliance on Washington, with some in Asia and the Gulf signaling they may pivot toward China for stability. As ammunition dwindles and costs soar, the U.S. faces tough choices: escalate to a ground war, risking thousands of lives, or seek a face-saving exit. Iran, empowered by its backers, shows no signs of backing down, vowing continued resistance until the aggressors withdraw. In closing, the world has indeed changed in the past week. What was once a unipolar order dominated by the U.S. is fracturing, with multipolar forces like China and Russia filling the void. The Middle East's future hangs in the balance, and the decisions made now will echo for generations. Stay informed, question the narratives, and join the conversation. If you value honest reporting like this, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. We rely on your support to keep going. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with more updates soon. Take care.